about that. Well, I was talking about assumptions that we need to challenge because of the emergence of South-South cooperation, especially the successful kind. And maybe because those assumptions, they were created or constructed or crafted during the Cold War or immediately after the Cold War. And they do not make sense anymore in a world that is rapidly changing as today. One of those assumptions is based on the costs of non-cooperation. For those who are not familiar with theories of cooperation, the traditional ones, they're all based in game theory, in which there is a particular kind of rationality. For one to win, the other one has to lose, or you have to optimize gains for both to win, and etc. You have a large body of literature about this. However, some recent developments have shown, especially related to so-called stochastic games and other forms of rationalities, that sometimes people cooperate just because it's good to cooperate. And it's based more on principles and feelings and not necessarily in immediate or automatic payoffs. Another assumption is that security issues, they are more important than any according to certain approaches of international relations. And as we can notice from already a long period of time, these assumptions, they don't hold. We can think of collective international action playing a fundamental role in achieving today arguably the most prosperous and peaceful moment in history of humankind in terms of international conflict. We hear the news, we listen to the news every day and watch the news, and all we see is war, but fact is, in terms of casualties, we live in arguably the most peaceful time. The problems and the mortality is coming from mostly interstate conflicts. So this is one of the issues that we might bear in mind. My second humble contribution is empirical. There has been a growing body of research that focuses on successful cases of South-South cooperation, yet they seldom deal with these main issues. Issues such as non-proliferation. In a nutshell, contrary to Western narratives, the Global South is not only about creating rogue nuclear states such as North Korea or Iran, to name a few. Fact is that there are excellent cases of non-proliferation arising from the Global South. I would like to point out three relevant arguments / examples. First, we shall always remember that the only country who voluntarily denuclearized was South Africa. However, even in the Global South, interest for this theme is virtually non-existent. Also, most nuclear-free zones are located in the Global South. Regardless the enormous pressures made by central countries in that direction of creating such free zones, they would not have come into fruition if it wasn't for political will and political engagement from the Global South. In other words, they do not exist just because the North wanted them to exist, but because the Global South in general bought the idea. A third argument example in the particular case of non-proliferation is one of my favorites with regards to the Brazilian-Argentine Agency for Accounting and Control of Nuclear Materials. For those who don't know, Brazil and Argentina, they were competing regional in South America and Latin America powers in the 60s and the 70s, and they had military nuclear programs, if you don't know. They were terminated in the 80s. And one of the byproducts, one of the outcomes of this whole political process of, first of all, giving up on nuclear armaments, obviously with enormous pressures from the international community, but if it wasn't for the fact that both countries also bought this idea, we wouldn't have one of the largest free nuclear-free zones in the world, which is based on the Treaty of Tlatelolco, which encompasses basically the whole of Latin America. And this agency, which is considered one of the benchmarks for nuclear approachment, and oftentimes is used as a benchmark case for India and Pakistan or North and South Korea as an institutional framework. So I highly recommend those who are interested in this issue to do research about ABACC, ABAC, which is the Argentina-Brazilian agency that I just mentioned. Apart from non-proliferation, there is also peacekeeping. Maybe I should go there and just show, I still have time? No? Yeah, just show a map. Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, in any case, this chart shows the ranking of contributors by country to peacekeeping operations, UN. Remembering that we have peacekeeping operations according to other regional organizations, such as the American Organization of American States. These are only UN, and most of the donors for peacekeeping are from the South. However, the 20 largest arms exporters in this recent time frame are largely from central northern countries. To conclude with a very simple example of bilateral defense cooperation between, there are a number of studies that show this particular kind of cooperation, bilateral defense cooperation, usually involving military aspects, training, exchange of information and techniques and joint exercises. They have a collateral, they have an impact, positive impact on security as a whole, and also on development assistance. So this is one of the best cases for already a large quantity of evidence, scientific, that bilateral defense cooperation may be a one mechanism to further international cooperation as a whole in this, security issues, and also development assistance. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot, Carlos, for your points on the need to theorize South-South cooperation, and then the empirical evidence and the examples which you cited. I'm particularly, of course, struck by your reference to the Argentina-Brazilian institutional agency, which then handled the nuclear control, if I understood correctly, and that you feel that it provides lessons learned for other regions and conflicts, possibly India, Pakistan. That's something that maybe we can address in other presentations or later in the discussion, to what extent that particular successful example has been picked up by the UN system or UN Office for South-South Cooperation, and the lessons learned made available to other conflict areas. Thank you very much. So with this, we turn to Mr. Deepak. Now you are based in Nepal, and here we are talking about an area of potential. And if we look back at the events of last year, of real conflict building up there, and the tensions, of course, here I'm referring to the interests of your two big neighbors, China and India. I wonder how you look at the possibilities of South-South cooperation, collective and joint action to address these tensions, particularly in your region.
Thank you, Chair and co-panelists and respected scholars.